Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast where we watch a randomly selected horror movie every single week. I'm Bob.
I'm Ben.
Why are you looking at your hand, bro?
Nothing. I got a cut.
Okay. A little bit of context. Ben claps us in for every episode so we can sync stuff up. And he just clapped and then was not even looking at. Most of them we make eye contact during the podcast, which I never really thought about. It's a little weird. And he was just staring at his hand. I didn't know what was happening.
It kind of hurt.
I asked you beforehand if you wanted me to clap. And you said, no, I'll be fine. I said, okay.
I was fine. Fine.
Clearly you weren't. You went, it kind of hurt. Oh,
yeah,
God.
well.
You big fucking baby.
Life kind of hurts, but I make it through that.
Ooh, okay. Anyway, you got anything you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
No, you got nothing?
Nope.
Okay, I got a couple things. It's all horror news related stuff. Let's start with something that is relevant to the podcast because we have talked about this person before. We've seen some of his movies. In cool studio news, horror movie creator Brian Usna, known for his work on Reanimator and Society, which I didn't know he worked on Society. I think we talked about that before, but I forgot. As well as John Penny, who worked on Return of the Living Dead 3 and The Kindred, which I've never heard of, have joined forces to form a new horror label, Dark Arts Entertainment. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to produce and distribute horror films that are smaller. So think of, not on the same vibe as Trauma, but a similar thing. They're just going to, produce and distribute new movies, which is pretty cool. I'm excited about it because Brian Usna's done some incredible work on Reanimator and stuff like that, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, I assume the difference here between them and Trauma is going to be, Trauma is a lot of gross, kind of crude stuff. I assume this is going to be gross, kind of body horror stuff.
Considering Society and Reanimator are on here.
Yeah.
And Return of the Living Dead 3, which we haven't seen yet, but I think that's pretty cool. I'm excited about it.
Return of the Living Dead 3?
Yeah.
We watched that.
Oh, we did. I'm stupid. We did watch that.
What are you talking about?
We haven't watched 4 or 5.
We haven't watched 4 or 5.
We have seen 3. Oh, yeah. So 3 is also gross and body horror.
I know. That's why I was like, why don't you remember this?
No, you're right. I'm stupid. Why did I think we hadn't seen that? But also The Kindred, which is another thing John Penny worked on. I don't know.
We haven't seen that.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
No, but I've heard about it.
Okay. But I'm excited about it because, at least from my perspective, in a lot of cases, the only other big, small studios I see putting out cool stuff, it's Trauma, because, they're Trauma. And then oh my God, what is his, the dude, he just recently passed away. Little Shop of, Roger Corman's studio.
He sold that.
He sold it, but I mean, they still put out cool stuff, and it's a smaller studio that does interesting stuff. But
not so much anymore, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but other than that, it's all big, studios putting out big, massive productions. And Blumhouse does some cool stuff, and A24 is pretty okay usually. But I'm excited for someone else to come in and do more stuff like that. It'll be cool.
More garbage.
More garbage. I'm such a fan of garbage. I'm such a little garbage slut, man.
Because I'm A24 tends to be a little art housey, and then Blumhouse.
I'm lumping Blumhouse in with the Lions Gates and all those other big studios and shit like that at this point.
Doesn't make the type of garbage Bob is referring to.
No, they make bad movies. Actually just bad movies sometimes.
They've had a string of bad movies recently.
Yeah. So, I'm not as excited, for their stuff anymore. Moving on. In re-release news, this is cool. The Babadook is making a return to theaters nationwide on September 19th for its 10-year anniversary, which is pretty cool. Tickets go on sale on August 14th. It hits theaters nationwide on September 19th. I actually have seen this movie, and I really like it. I think it's super cool. Very scary film. I actually scared the bejesus out of me when I was younger. But I like it.
Surprised you've seen it.
Really?
You haven't seen a lot of movies, Bob.
I know I haven't seen a lot of movies, but that's one of those ones that I have seen, I guess. I don't know. It was just one of the ones that someone got me to watch.
I don't know. You just went, really? And I was like, yeah. I am surprised.
I mean, I assume you've seen it.
Yes. I think so.
What do you mean you think so? It was super popular when it came out.
Bob, I've seen so many movies at this point, and my memory's so bad.
Okay, that's fair.
If we watched it, I could be like, yeah, but...
Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm just excited about this one because this is a horror movie that I actually like.
Yeah.
And it's weird, which
I know
is the fun part.
For some people, it can be a bit on the nose.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, last one, and this is a mouthful. This is a long-ass fucking rant because it's about a new horror movie. Spider-1, director of Allegoria and Bury the Bride, is back in the director's chair with a new film called Little Bites. It is being produced by Cher and Chaz Bono. It releases on October 4th in theaters, and Shudder has picked it up for streaming rights. The film stars Barbara Crampton, who we've seen before, in season 3, in all 3 movies for season 3. Well, actually, Reanimator, she's in that.
There you go.
Heather Langenkamp, Bonnie Aarons, and Chris Fox. It also has special appearances from James A. I don't know how to say this guy's last name. Janice?
It's James A. Janice.
Yeah, and Chelsea Rebecca from Dead Meat.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I don't know anything about Spider-1 and the other movies he's directed, which is Allegoria and Bury the Bride. But when I was
saying Spider-1?
Yes.
Like one spider?
It's his name, everywhere that I've seen this dude is named Spider-1.
Well, I don't think you can watch the movie, Bob. It was directed by a spider.
It's directed by a spider. He's like an artist, and his stage name is Spider-1. But everywhere I can find online, everyone just calls him Spider-1. It might actually be his real name. I don't know.
He's one spider.
No, shut up, Ben. But apparently, from what I could tell, Allegoria and Bury the Bride are both very well-received horror movies. And so I'm excited about this one because it has some cool people in it and also a cameo from people from Dead Meat, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is cool.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay.
You sure you don't have anything, Ben? I'm really padding this one out because there's something I'm going to say and it's going to make you really mad.
I'm fairly sure.
Okay. Look, before we started this recording, well, actually, let's go over what categories we have this season first before I go on this rant.
We have kaiju films.
That's one of them.
Zombies.
No, okay, zombie comedies. Don't call it that.
No, I'm just joking. We have kaiju films. We have cosmic horror films.
Yes.
And zombies. I had to get the order right.
Okay.
We have 3 left in kaiju, and then 1 left in every other category.
Yeah. And Ben was like, can you please pick a kaiju movie? Ben, I don't want to.
You should. I know you don't want to.
Yeah, but
but you should.
I've just had such a good time with every other movie in every other category.
And we'll do one next week.
That's next week, Ben. I have to wait a week.
Do a kaiju film.
You're right. I know you're right. I wanted to complain and bitch.
I mean, that's fair, but
I man, I don't know. I'm not as excited about this one because of how good the other films in the other categories have been. Does that make sense?
No, because you haven't seen any kaiju films, so it might be your favorite thing ever.
No, it's not, though. It's not gonna be, though.
It could be.
No, Zombie for Sale was incredible. That might be my favorite movie that we've seen on the show in fucking, all 10 seasons, maybe. Well, except for Day of the Dead.
Poor Day of the Dead.
No, except for Day of the Dead.
Got dethroned.
No. That's still my favorite movie of all time. Anyway, I guess I'll pick kaiju movies. I have all 3 spots, Benjamin. So, what's in spot number 2? Fuck it, we ball.
2?
Why are you looking at me like that? No, bro. Come on.
Well,
you
did get a choice. We are starting off with a movie from 1965.
Ooh. What are we watching?
Today we are going to be watching a film, maybe ideally chosen for Bob, called Gamera, the Giant Monster.
Ooh, that's cool.
Do you know anything about Gamera?
No.
Oh. Well, then this is going to be interesting.
Well, isn't the Godzilla fight Gamera at some point? Isn't that a thing?
I don't think so.
Okay. Am I losing my mind?
I think they're owned by different studios.
Okay.
Like rival studios. So I don't know if they've ever
crossed over.
The
name is really familiar, though. I've heard the name for sure, but I don't know anything about it.
Because they're from Daiei Studios and Godzilla's Toho, I believe.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, description. Daiei Studios' attempt at Godzilla.
Oh, no. We're starting with the bad one, aren't we? Oh, maybe this will be great, actually. Holy shit.
So, the thing to note about Gamera is, first of all, I chose the Gamera franchise because there's a specific reason I think you, of all people, will latch on to it.
Okay.
Actually, there might be 2 reasons.
Okay.
There's definitely one, though, and it has to do with Gamera himself. But I think one of the interesting things about this franchise is, it's very, very long. Like a bunch of movies. There is a Showa era selection and then I think it's Heisei era selection.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how that works?
No.
They do eras by the current, what is it, King of Japan? I don't think it's an emperor. They have a royal family in Japan. They do time periods by it.
Okay, cool.
Anyways, the Showa era is the era like Godzilla came out, and it's kind of like the classic era for kaiju films. And then I believe the Heisei is the newer era. Thing to note here, though, is the Showa era, which is what we're going to be starting with. We're only watching the original film today. For Gamera, is considered some of the worst Showa era kaiju films.
Oh, no.
However, interestingly enough, the Heisei era Gamera films are considered some of the best kaiju films of that era.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I do have all of them.
They really had a glow up, huh?
So we if you like it, we can go through all of them.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to go through all of them eventually. You bought them all, so we're going to watch all of them.
Yes. Length, 1 hour and 21 minutes long.
Oh, whoa. That's actually kind of short. It is from 65, so I guess it makes sense.
Not rated.
Oh, thank God.
Review scores, IMDb gave it a 5.2 out of 10.
That's not bad.
Tomato meter gave it a 40%.
Okay.
And an audience score of 32%.
Look. I know a movie that is bad is going to be good for me when it's like above 30%, but not like anywhere above 30 but below 50. Between 30 and 50 is like a sweet spot of bad.
Yeah, and like I said, there's some reasons I think you'll like Gamera more than some of the other kaijus on offer.
Okay.
Awards, 0 wins, 0 nominations. Notable actors, Eiji Funakoshi as Dr. Hidaka. He was Tamura in Fires on the Plain. Michiko Sugata as Nobuyo Sakurai. They were Osaki in Kenki. Harumi Kiritachi as Kyoko Yamamoto. They were the actress in The Secret of Five Lot. Junichiro Yamashita as Aoyagi. He was Kisuke in Bamboo Doll of Echizen. Yoshiro Uchida as Toshio Sakurai. They were Mayor Sakurai in The Great Buddha Arrival. Yoshiro Kitahara as Mr. Sakurai. They were Mitsunari Ishida in Shinobi no Mono 3 Resurrection. Jun Hamamura as Dr. Murase. They were Doctor in Bamboo Doll of Echizen. And then Yoshio Yoshida as Eskimo Chief. He was Boss Tomegoro of Kagotame in Zatoichi on the Road. All right, director is Noriaki Yuasa. They directed 22 episodes of Ultraman 80.
Oh,
between
shit.
1980 and 1981.
That's pretty sweet.
I also have a couple seasons of Ultraman.
I know,
if you
we've
ever want
talked
to cover
about that. I think we've decided we're probably going to watch that at some point off the podcast for fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Ultra Zero is just weird. Writers Nissan Takahashi. They also wrote The Wind of Youth Group Crosses the Mountain Pass
That is a fucking mouthful.
from 1961. Budget and box office are both unknown. Couldn't find anything on them.
Okay.
Country of origin, Japan.
That makes sense.
Facts. Special effects were made by Yonesaburo Tsukiji. Figured you just want to know that.
That's cool.
Apparently, this film was Daiei's studio's second attempt at the kaiju genre.
Oh, that's sweet.
Their first attempt was a film called Nezura, which they tried to make in 1964. Its alternative title was Giant Horde Beast Nezura, and it was actually never completed.
Oh, that sucks.
Which kind of sucks because it sounds super cool.
It does sound cool.
So the film was shut down for health reasons by the health department due to the wild brown rats used in the film escaping the set and risking the transmission of disease to the surrounding areas.
Oh my God. That's like the first time we've heard of like the health department shutting down a film.
See, all these kaiju films come from like this low budget genre kind of unique to Japan.
Yeah.
Where everything is like done with practical effects. It's really cool. But sometimes that means if you need like a horde beast like Nezula, who's like a giant rat, just get a bunch of rats.
Yeah.
Not great for health.
Yeah.
In either case, there was apparently a crowdfunded biopic based on this filled film made in 2021 called Nezula 1964.
That's actually so sweet.
So it's all about the production of that movie.
That's really cool.
Even though it never came out.
I mean, it's still interesting.
I mean, fair enough, yeah. Last couple facts here. Due to the low confidence in this project, because, they had just failed a previous one.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get too into, like, Japanese cinema history, but basically all studios for movies were going under at this point. And so, Daiei Studios had low confidence in this film. And because of that, the film suffered from a number of problems, including low budget, use of faulty props, belittlement from the studio.
Holy shit.
Basically, everything negative that could happen to this production happened to this production.
And you wonder why people thought it was bad.
No, that's unrelated.
Okay.
But last point of note is kind of a common thing that happened with some of these older Japanese kaiju films is that there is like an American version of the film.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's usually worse because they'll add in scenes with like Americans, and they usually kind of mess with the themes
Yeah.
or the tempo of the film. But point being, there was a American version of this film released in 1966 under the title Gamera the Invincible, which we're not going to be watching that version. I believe we're going to be watching Gamera the Giant Monster today.
Sweet.
So that's all I got.
Okay. I'm excited.
Do you want me to show you? Oh, no, wait. I'll show you the cover when we get back to the movie.
Sure. How about that?
Because it has a picture of Gamera on the front, and I want it to be
Okay, yeah.
spoiler-free.
I'm excited about this one. I'm excited because, honestly, I would have been kind of upset if we got Godzilla for the first one. Because assuming that Godzilla's in the category, like the original Godzilla.
Maybe.
And I'm glad we're not starting with that. Because that, like, I want to be able to enjoy the other movies without having, like, probably the best film we're going to watch in the category be the first one, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
You don't know if it would be the best one.
Probably. It spawned the biggest franchise and has done all kinds of crazy shit since. And there's, like, spin-off movie. My point is, I'm glad we're starting here instead of with something like Godzilla. That's all.
Fair enough. All right, well, we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll see you guys after the movie. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We just finished watching Gamera, the Giant Monster.
Yeah. Did
Yep.
you like it, Bob?
Oh, man, it's so cool. It was so fucking cool. I feel bad about, like, waiting so long to watch a kaiju movie now. Because this movie was fucking sweet. I had so much fun.
Bob was just... Every second he was like, you know what? I like this so much.
It's so cool, bro.
And I think what it really comes down to, and it was a good first choice for Bob, is that Gamera, like the Gamera franchise, is probably not the best kaiju franchise. Definitely isn't.
No.
However, the Gamera franchise has a couple things that Bob really likes as tropes. And I'll just say them right now because I think it's kind of important to understanding what Gamera is. First of all, the character design of Gamera.
Yeah.
He's based on an animal near and dear to Bob's heart.
True.
As well as a soft drink.
Yes.
Turtles.
Yeah. I do. For those that don't know, Ben said I talked about this on the podcast, but I don't remember doing this.
A couple episodes ago.
When I was younger, I had a turtle, and his name was Dr. Pepper. And he was my pet turtle, and I had him for, I don't know, like 5-6 years? Had him a long time. And I miss him very dearly. He was my favorite pet. And the fact that the Gamera is a giant turtle is so fucking cool. It's so sweet, bro.
Yep.
It's so awesome.
It's just a little wacky, but it's cool.
It's so interesting compared to, like, other giant monsters that I think of. Like, when I think of giant monsters, I think of giant lizard, because, like, you know, that's intimidating. I've never thought of turtles as scary. But, like, seeing a giant turtle, like, do crazy shit like Gamera was doing was fucking rad.
And the other thing I think Bob likes about the series is it's kind of made for children.
Yeah.
Like, that's its main selling point, and you know how Bob is. But the
It was
big
fun.
thing is they do have a child character, and Bob latches onto small Japanese children characters in movies.
Okay, that makes it sound weird, bro.
I said in movies.
Sure.
I made it sound less weird.
Well, it's
Yoichi is like his favorite character ever, and
in Ringu, yeah.
now we got Toshio in this movie.
And Toshio's great. He's
Just Bob as a child.
kind of, yes, loves turtles.
In either case, I'm glad you liked it. Usual stick of, recommending you go watch the movie before you get any spoilers from us and stuff. But what I will note here is this film doesn't look the best.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the main problem with this movie. We were watching it as a Blu-ray, and even then it was fairly hard to watch.
It was
because
really grainy at some points.
of quality. So I do need to give that disclaimer. With that being said, we're going to do a brief synopsis and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll get into actually discussing the movie. And we might touch on a couple things about the franchise in general, because I'm sure
that'll be
Bob
fun.
has some questions. With that being said, the general premise here is that these people are going to study rumors of a giant turtle called Gamera. I think it's legends and stuff from Eskimos. It's very unclear
It is very unclear about
what
that.
actual people they're referring to, because the Eskimos we see in the movie are very stereotypical, but they also don't make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
In either case, I think we're in Antarctica. It
Yeah.
feels like.
That's how they treat it.
And a nuke goes off, and it cracks the ice and releases Gamera, the giant monster. And Gamera's a giant turtle, and it goes on a rampage in Tokyo, because of course it does.
Yeah. And other places.
And other places. But still Japan.
Yeah.
And that's the movie.
Yeah, I
So
mean, that's basically it.
that sounds interesting. I think this first one's worth a watch. I haven't seen any of the other ones in the franchise, but I've heard the first one is probably the best out of the Showa era stuff. So that being said, we're going to get into actually talking about the movie. The first thing I kind of want to touch on here is I want to show Bob the box art for my Blu-rays, because I got the set for the Showa and the Heisei era from Arrow Video, because they go together. I will say, somewhat spoilers, they show some of the monsters we see in the franchise in the background.
So fun.
But
yo, they go together like that? I didn't know that's what you meant. That's fucking sweet.
Yep. So it comes with I can go over the whole franchise now.
Okay.
Because I can tell you all the movies in it. For the Showa era, there's Gamera the Giant Monster, Gamera versus Barugon, Gamera versus Gyos, Gamera versus Virus, Gamera versus Geron, Gamera versus Jiger, Gamera versus Zigra, and then Gamera Super Monster.
Ooh.
And then Heisei era is Gamera the Guardian of the Universe.
That's awesome.
Gamera 2 Attack of Legion, Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris, and then Gamera the Brave.
Oh, Gamera's a good guy, bro. I'm putting that out there right now.
So I just wanted to touch on that really quick, because the franchise is fairly long. We might cover it at some point, in which case we'll be doing all those movies.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun,
So
though.
just wanted to let you know. In either case, I think the first thing we should start off with when talking about this film is the film quality, because I think that is objectively the biggest problem with this movie.
It really is. Like, it's so hard to see some of the nighttime scenes.
So what it looks like to me is that they got very cheap film stock, like low-quality film stock, and so even when they remastered it, it still looks very grainy. The other thing to note about the film stock is it's in black and white, because that was cheaper than color. And the combination of like low quality film stock and the fact that a lot of this movie is shot at nighttime means that because it's shot in black and white, it's really bad at picking up stuff. So while most of the film is fairly grainy, the scenes that are more action heavy, that are shot like at night with high contrast, like darkness and shadows, look atrocious.
It's so hard to see what's happening.
Like, it's very hard to see what's happening or what's going on. And I think that is the biggest problem with this film.
Yeah.
Like, the film overall is fairly cheap. You know, we can get into that later, but that's, you know, a common, I think, staple amongst kaiju films like this. Like, you understand that there's going to be some cheaper looking stuff, but the fact that you can't see stuff is such a big letdown with this film.
Because, I mean, that's the whole point. Like, we are watching a kaiju film. It is a giant monster movie. And the fact that we sometimes cannot see the giant monster destroy shit or blow stuff up, which is kind of the point of the movie, really, really sucks. It makes a lot of the action-heavy sequences not hit as hard as they probably should.
Yeah. And I don't really think there's anything to say about that, because I don't necessarily think it was... Like, it's obviously a production issue, but it's not an intentional one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just an issue with the resources used, and it sucks. But otherwise, it's shot relatively well.
Yeah, they do some cool camera stuff. I mean, of course, it's a dude in a rubber suit, so there's lots of, like, forced camera perspective stuff, and lots of MIDI work and stuff, and all that stuff looks really cool.
Yeah, but again, just hard to see, and that sucks. With that being said, if you can look past this, I think it's a fairly passable giant monster movie.
Oh, for sure.
I think the first thing you have to understand is I believe it falls into the category of tokusatsu films.
Ooh.
Do you know what that is?
We've talked about that before, but it's been a while.
So it's a term used for Japanese films to refer to, it's not even a genre, but it's kind of like a technique where they use a lot of practical heavy stuff.
Oh, okay.
For everything.
Isn't that what, didn't Tetsuo fall in that same category? Isn't that when we talked about it?
I believe so. It's fairly common because it got its big kick with Godzilla, like, off the ground. And it's just been very popular since then because it's a very cheap way to do live production stuff, especially before CGI has gotten really cheap. The very classic example of it is guys in rubber suits.
Yep.
And then you put them on a stage with miniatures and they smash them and stuff. And that's all this film is it's whenever we can, we're going to use practical effects. And it doesn't always look great. I mean, you can see planes flying, and they're very clearly model planes, and you can see the wires because we're in higher definition.
But it's so cool.
Or when they're in Antarctica or whatever, you can see the background.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a classic staple when you're getting into kaiju films like this, especially like Showa era stuff.
I mean, you just have to think about the fact that it is 1965, right? And for 1965, all of this stuff I think looks cool and is pretty great, honestly.
Yeah, the thing is, like, it looks cheesy, and I think if you hate cheesy, like, 1950s monster movies or, you know, kaiju films, of course, you're not going to like this. But if you like stuff like that, it's a cool film.
I'm a huge fan, bro.
Not because it's realistic, but because it's impressive.
It's impressive and really sweet. That's the thing. Like, yeah, maybe it doesn't look the best. Like, it's not like we're not looking at a film masterpiece or anything, but it's cool. It's like you can see that there's artistry and effort going in. So it really makes it pay off more, I think, because you know that they're putting in a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I always think it's a very interesting technique, and like how they can pull off what would normally be challenging sequences in, I don't want to say cheap ways, but in unique ways. I mean, obviously having your kaiju be a guy in a rubber suit and then having them walk around a miniature stage is super cool.
Oh, it's so rad.
But I think one of the really interesting ones this film does is, we haven't gotten into it, but one of the big things about Gamera is he eats
fire.
Energy, essentially.
Yeah.
They say fire, but it is energy. And because of this, I think we only see it like once or twice. He can breathe fire.
It's pretty fucking rad.
Which is cool. I think they made a completely separate, like, puppet. I don't think it's a guy in a suit. I think it's a model.
That's cool.
That can breathe fire. And then they filled the model with, like, gasoline. But in either case, whenever Gamera needs to eat fire, they just reverse the footage of him shooting flames.
It's cool.
And it's like, oh, that's super easy, but it works.
I mean, I think a big benefit of watching a film like this is you get to see so much technique and so much like stuff being used in interesting and cool ways that you don't expect. And really, for me, that was the huge takeaway. Like, overall, I think the film is okay, but getting to see all these practical techniques used in cool and interesting ways, like, really raises the level for me personally. And if you're not into that, you won't have as good of a time.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy stuff like that, not only because I enjoy practical effects, but I think it's really cool from, like, a filmmaking perspective. Like, I'm not a filmmaker, but it's cool to go look at something and go, okay, if I ever had an issue like this,
how would I solve it without having to do, like, touch-ups with CGI, like, practically?
Or having a lot of money.
Yeah, and
because
it's sweet.
I mean, not to get into this too much, but my understanding, it might be a little flawed because I don't know too much about this, is that Japan's, like, movie market was tanking at this point in time. My understanding is that essentially Japan hosted the Olympics.
Oh, really?
And so everyone bought TVs and they needed to produce content fast. But then it kind of blurred the lines between, like, TV shows and movies started to tank.
Interesting.
In either case, a lot of studios didn't have any money during this time period. And so, you know, not only did Daiei not believe in this project and didn't give it a lot of money, but their previous project failed.
Yeah.
So they were already at a deficit. So, I mean, it's just really cool to see that they were able to do all this stuff even while scraping essentially the bottom of the barrel for effects.
No, it's super cool. It's so cool. Okay. Now that we're done talking about effects for now, they'll probably come back up later because they're so important to the film. The reason, and we brought this up earlier, I do like Toshio a lot, okay? Probably my favorite character in the movie, but that is because, and this is something that I don't see as a problem, but probably other people who watch this film will, the characterization in this film isn't great. A lot of the characters are very surface level. They're just there to facilitate the giant monster, which is fine. Honestly, when you're watching a giant monster movie, I think that is sort of the point. The characters don't need to matter because the monster effects and everything is so cool, in my opinion. Not that it would hurt it, but it doesn't need to be the forefront of what's happening. But Toshio is one of the only characters that actually has, like, an arc that happens. You know what I mean? Like, he has character progression. He is an actual person, it feels like. And he does a lot of really cool, interesting stuff that makes the film more palatable in a lot of ways. Like, we see a lot of other characters that are just the exact same. Like, they're the professor, I don't remember his name, that is in the research base, or not the research, like the Eskimo base or whatever, camp. He doesn't have any sort of progression with the film. He just is sort of just a scientist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what was his name? Dr. like Hamada or something?
Something like that. I don't remember.
Is it Hadaka?
Yes. But a lot of those, like, characters, they don't have any sort of
depth
to them, and that sucks.
Yeah, that is, at least from my experience with kaiju films, a little bit weird.
Really?
So, I haven't seen a bajillion kaiju films, but I've seen a couple of them, especially some of the older ones that are more famous. And I think it's really one of the big places this film drops the ball on because, when you get into a late stage kaiju film, it usually becomes Monster A versus Monster B, and that's really there to carry most of your plot. But what I think, especially modern audiences are not necessarily familiar with, is the fact that a lot of kaiju films do have human characters, and they are like a big part of the story. You have essentially your human plot and your monster plot. Usually your human plot's how do we solve this problem, but they are important. And those human plots are especially important in these like first kaiju films in a franchise because it's usually just one monster. And so really all you can do with that monster is have it destroy stuff, which is cool, but does not a story make.
Fair.
And so a lot of, these OG kaiju films focus very heavily on characters and like their interactions and relationships and how they're dealing with a problem. And the fact that this film, like you said, I don't think really does that well is a big issue.
Yeah.
The only character that really gets a lot of consistent screen time, we learn character motivations for, or anything like that, is Toshio.
That's why I like him so much.
And that makes him the most noteworthy character. He's the only one I'm like 100% confident I know his name.
Yeah.
But objectively, he also has no relation to the plot.
No. He's just kind of there a lot of the times.
I find him annoying.
You think he's annoying?
Yeah.
Oh, no, bro.
Because he's just like that shitty little kid that somehow gets away with doing stupid stuff that he shouldn't.
But it's awesome.
And I don't know. It's just like kind of, at least for me, one of the more disappointing parts of this film.
I agree. I wish there was more.
When the monster's on screen, it's like, okay, this is fairly cool.
It is really cool.
But I want to like the human sequences too. And that was really hard.
It was tough.
Now, the benefit here of having, Toshio be your only real character, I will say, is the fact that it makes this movie more kid-friendly. My understanding is that Gamera is, especially originally, definitely seen as a more kid-friendly franchise because of that. In fact, when we were done with the movie, the Blu-ray has a bunch of extra stuff. It has Gamera the Invincible, which is the American version, which is cool because it's a different movie. But it also had the trailer for the Gamera the Invincible, and I don't know if you could hear it.
Oh, it sounded like a kid's movie.
Yeah, and I do think that is different because, we hear about kids liking kaiju films nowadays. Or, you hear about kaiju fans from the 80s, and they're like, yeah, I grew up watching it. But a lot of kaiju films are not necessarily kid-friendly in tones and themes because the adult sections, the human sections, tend to be more adult-oriented, especially in the early Showa era. So I do think that is a unique thing about this film, if maybe a negative for some people.
I mean, yeah, because it's kid-friendly because Toshio is basically the main character. It's Gamera and Toshio.
Gamera and Toshio kind of sucks.
I like Toshio, bro.
Gamera's a turtle.
That's pretty cool.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from with all that stuff, but I'm personally in awe of how cool the practical and monster effects are that I don't really know how much it hurts it.
Yeah, I'm glad it's something you liked, because I knew going into it you like kid characters like that in your films, where they're kind of like, don't want to say annoying, but just like likable in a bumbling, idiotic way. Not to mention turtles. I thought it'd be a good tie together. So,
coming into this movie, I had a very basic idea of what a kaiju film would be. And you told me that these were all Japanese films. So I knew this was going to be set mostly in Japan. They actually do a fair bit of like international stuff, which I thought was really sweet. Because, of course, the movie's set in 1965. And at this point, America and Japan are like allies. And so there's actually a fair bit of American stuff in the movie with Japanese subtitles on the sides, which is super sweet.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really fun and interesting and cool.
It is interesting to see because, we always see foreign films with English subtitles. So it's weird to see a film that has the like Japanese subtitles in it. They were on the sides because they were up and down. But it's a unique take on it. I think the whole thing with kaiju films is they are, especially early ones, fairly international stories.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting that, and I thought that was really cool.
Because, once a universe is used to kaiju films, it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
We have a kaiju all the time. But in the early ones, it's like, oh, this is the first time a giant monster has been seen in the world ever.
The world should deal with the problem.
So, of course, everyone cares. And yeah, like Bob said, we get a lot of scenes with some American military guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of funny because they're not great actors, and
No.
you can tell people are reading off cue cards. Like, the general is always getting a note, and he sounds like he's struggling to read it.
Yeah.
But then we also get, like, a bunch of scientists from around
Mhm.
the world, and that one is fairly interesting because this film's set during the Cold War,
Yeah.
and so we see, like, Russian scientists, American scientists working together.
East Germany scientists.
But yeah, also like East Germany and West Germany. And it's like, oh, this is cool.
that's something else about this movie. Because it's a movie from 65, there's a lot of just interesting historical stuff about it that just makes it fun.
Yeah, so I think that international cooperation is cool. And it really does prop up some of those human moments. Because
Mhm.
that's really what all the human moments that aren't focusing on Toshio are. Either that or they're focusing on our kind of three cast of characters. There's Dr. Hidaka, we kind of mentioned. He's just generic doctor guy.
Yeah. I mean, he's like the scientist in charge or whatever.
The Gamera specialist.
Yeah.
There's his daughter. I assume daughter.
No, it's his assistant.
Is it his assistant?
It's his assistant.
I don't know. His assistant, Kyoko, the goddess of luck.
Jesus Christ. I hate that. It's so bad.
And a reporter. And do you remember the reporter's name?
AOG.
It's his ALG?
I think so. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's how I was reading it.
Aoyagi.
Is that how you
I
pronounce
think it's Aoyagi.
Not sure.
Anyways, I'm going to call him Reporter Man.
Yeah.
And they're the guys who we see at the beginning in Antarctica, and they're the only ones who survived the Gamera incident. And they kind of move together as a team.
Yeah.
The reporter guy sticks around because he says Kyoko is his goddess of luck.
And
Because
he's like hitting on her constantly.
he is the only reporter who survived
Yeah.
the Gamera incident. Which, you know what? To be fair, maybe be a little superstitious after that.
Yeah.
I think the hitting on her thing is very important, though, because a lot of these films tend to have a insert generic love plot.
Yeah, but this one isn't interesting or fleshed out whatsoever.
And this one kind of didn't have a conclusion.
No, it just sort of, I don't know, it petered out and didn't go anywhere.
And I think we should mention that because, again, it falls into for whatever reason, the adult human characters really weren't fleshed out as much as they should have been.
No,
'Cause,
and
like,
they're boring.
they started a storyline like of a romance, and it wasn't really good,
No.
but I should have gotten a conclusion, and
Yeah.
I didn't.
Like a happy ending or anything, literally anything. Give me an ending to this thing. It just feels like a lot of the character moments are just sort of tossed to the side, and the monster is the big thing for this one, which I think is fine. I think it works.
I like the monster.
I love the monster. We haven't even talked about the coolest part about the monster, and I don't know if you want to talk about it.
Sure, we can break down Gamera. I'm okay spoiling stuff about Gamera, not only because everything's spoiled in trailers,
Sure.
but
Oh, yeah, it gets spoiled in the trailer we watched a second ago, for
this
sure.
monster's from what, 1965?
Yeah.
He's very old. He's not the most famous kaiju, but he's fairly well known. He has his own franchise. So, like I said, Gamera's a giant turtle.
Yeah.
He's kind of cool. He looks a little stupid because he's a rubber suit. Let's be honest.
I don't care.
He gets better in later ones when they, have more money. But the big thing here is he walks on two legs
Sometimes.
most of the time.
No, he crawls around a little bit.
Yeah, but he mostly walks on two legs.
Sure.
He's got big old feet and
Yeah.
little hands, and he smacks stuff. Like I said, he eats energy, which means he eats fire. He's attracted to, like, flames,
Petroleum.
petroleum, because it burns.
Nukes.
But yeah, he also eats, like, minerals that are high in energy, uranium, and then, yeah, they do hit him with a nuke to wake him up, and he just
He's fine.
absorbs it. Assumedly, he gets more powerful the more.
Yeah, well, because at one point, they're like, the military's like, all right, America, prepare to launch the nukes. And the doctor goes, no, don't do that. He'll become unstoppable. Please.
I assume it's kind of like how reptiles are endothermic and
Yeah.
need outside heat to keep going, and Gamera's kind of the same. And then we said he could breathe fire, which he only does, like, twice.
He does a couple times near the end, too.
To me, feels like they were just trying to... They were like, Godzilla has atomic breath. We got to do it.
Yeah, but it's unexpected because it's a fucking sea creature breathing fire, bro. And also, it makes no sense, but it's cool. But I think they make up for the fact that he eats, like, energy, so he has to expel it somehow, bro.
Yeah, and I think they at least defend the fire breathing from the eating fire thing. Because
Yeah.
it was like, well, we have to have him breathe fire to do the practical effect.
Yeah.
But it did feel like the obligate. Well, Toho did it.
But it wasn't just thrown in there. It feels like they put a little bit of effort into making it work.
Just a little
Just
bit.
enough for me to be okay with
They
it.
mention he has a furnace inside of him. That's why. But I think all of that's fairly standard kaiju stuff.
Mhm.
None of that is really unique. The thing that I think really makes Gamera stand out as his character's designed.
Okay. Before you reveal what it is, can we reveal the thing that they do? Because I want to set it up, right?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, they're trying to find a way to solve this Gamera problem. And they're like, well, we can't blow him up. We've tried that. It didn't work.
He got more powerful.
He got more powerful. We can't, we can't hurt him, basically. He's impervious to bullets, explosions, everything.
They do some cool effects where, assumedly artillery shells bounce off
Off his shell. It looks so fucking cool.
And his front.
It's awesome. So they're like, okay, what's the one weakness of a motherfucking turtle? Flip it on its back. So they fucking...
Two weaknesses.
Well, two weaknesses. Cold temperatures.
Yes.
So they, formulated a plan to make, an ice bomb that they've been working on.
For the jungle. It's essentially ice napalm.
Basically, yeah. They're like, if we freeze the jungle, everything's fine. So they, freeze Gamera with the ice bombs, and then he's on, a mountainside, and they use dynamite and blow up the mountainside and flip him over onto his back. And at this point, we're 40 minutes into the movie. I go, well, they've solved the turtle problem. The turtle is now, he can't go anywhere. He's stuck. What is he to do? And then Gamera does the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Now, Bob describes it as the coolest fucking thing he's ever seen in his life. It's also objectively the stupidest thing about Gamera's design.
No, it's so cool. I don't even give a shit.
Is it cool? Yes. Is it objectively ludicrous? Also, yes. Bob's shaking his head at me right now because he's like, I love it.
It's so cool.
Essentially, we get to see Gamera pull his arms and legs into his shell.
Which is a cool use of the turtle.
I want to know, besides being a good use of the turtle, is super cool from a practical effect standpoint. Because assumedly, they had a hard shell center for this rubber suit, and the actor just kind of pulled the head into the hard shell. I thought that was really, really interesting.
It's super dope.
But specifically, where his arm should be, fire starts shooting out somehow.
He has a furnace inside of him.
Yeah, but he does not have exit holes for that furnaces in his arms and hands. But fire shoots out of, the arm and leg holes, and it causes him to spin. And earlier in the film, we'd seen a flying saucer, and it turns out the flying saucer is just Gamera.
Flying around.
The jets coming out of each side of his shell spin him, and then he can fly.
It's fucking sweet.
It's pretty cool. It's dumb, but it's pretty
dumb,
cool.
But it's so cool. It is the coolest way I could think of to fix the turtle being on its back problem. Because it's such an easy solution to this situation, and then the movie just goes, nah, he can fly. That's awesome. You don't expect a giant turtle to be able to fly, bro.
And in defense of this whole, oh, guess what, guys, he can fly thing, they do at least hint at it.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, they're like, Gamera was spotted in the sea, and then he appeared inland, 15 minutes later.
And then he appeared over Egypt, and then in France. Well, how is he getting to these places?
No, that's when he was already flying.
Oh, yeah, he was already flying at that point.
But they do have a scene where it's he's in the water.
Yeah.
And then he appears miles away without seeing him walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a good hint. But they also have this stone tablet from the Eskimos.
Yeah.
That is just Gamera flying through the sky. So at least they hint at it.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
It's dumb, but it's so cool.
It's definitely the coolest thing he does. And I will note they do a nice little animation sequence where they put a flying turtle shell over the footage. I thought it looked really good.
It looks good, yeah.
Especially because the technique they're using to do it means the flying turtle shell always looked better than the really dark shots they were shooting it on.
Yeah.
So that was interesting at least.
No, it adds cool powers to a creature that I didn't think would have them.
Just makes it unique, which I think is the big thing.
Sweet. And once again, I do think it's a great use of it being a turtle, which is not something I expected. I just think it's so cool, man.
You just like turtles.
I do. I really like turtles. I think they're great.
I think since we just mentioned it, and I know you talked about it during the film, they have a lot of sequences where they superimpose Gamera into stuff or people into scenes. All those looked really good.
It looks really cool, yeah.
Again, there were some problems with the film stock, making things not look
blurry,
great.
Hard to see, but
all of that was fairly impressive and well done.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. There are lots of really cool shots where it's Gamera will be wrecking some shit, and they'll superimpose images of the people on the ground running away from it, or use cars driving away, and it all looks really cool. And that's the thing that makes this film so impressive to me is we get so much more of Gamera in a city wrecking shit and being able to see people actually sprinting away from him than I thought we were going to. I felt like that was going to be a really difficult thing to pull off, but they do a fairly good job of it in this movie, and I really like it because it makes the giant monster movie thing work.
Fair
if
enough.
you don't get to see the chaos that it can create and the people panicking, it doesn't hit as hard. Like, if it was just Gamera on a giant set wrecking buildings and we didn't see anybody, that's boring.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that has to be old hat at this point.
Sure.
You know, Godzilla came out over 10 years before this movie.
Damn, really?
Yeah, so, you know, that was kind of a well-known thing. I will say the thing I think Gamera does well is it shows the inside sequences of the buildings being destroyed.
It's super cool.
And I did think that was fairly unique. Outside of that, I thought the miniature work wasn't always great, especially for, like, vehicles.
Sure.
But the buildings and stuff looked decent.
The building looked really cool.
Same with, like, train cars and stuff like that. The Gamera suit looks pretty okay for
Pretty
a rubber
cool.
suit. Sometimes those suits look real janky and they'll like flop around and stuff.
It doesn't look floppy at all.
No, I think it turned out really
The shell
well.
actually looks hard as fuck.
I assume it's a hard shell.
Probably.
To keep it out
Together,
like
yeah.
that.
Do we want to talk about the end of this movie?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else, so I think we should just talk about it.
Because I personally don't love the end of this movie, but it is really fucking cool.
Yeah, so spoiler alert for that. We're not going to do a spoiler section because, again, this movie is
Old.
And I'm going to be honest, it's ludicrous, but also easy to predict
Sure.
because it's that ludicrous. Very specifically, I'm just going to give it away here, kinda. We were at the beginning of the film, and Bob was like, how do we stop this turtle? We can't blow him up. And I was like, well, we could send him to the moon. That's what they do.
Well,
Not the moon,
Yeah.
but Mars. So essentially, halfway through the film, we hear about the Z Plan, not to be confused with Plan Z from the SpongeBob movie,
I hate
in
it.
which, you know, Plankton
The
brainwashes
Z
people with
plan.
the chum bucket hats. Anyways, long story short, we don't learn about what Plan Z is, or I'm sorry, what Z Plan is, until the very end of the
Which
film.
I think is so cool.
And I did want to mention that is, I think, a very well done way to handle it.
Because if we know what the plan is, I think that's boring. But because it's kept a surprise, when they do it, it's such a sweet reveal.
Yeah, because I think it structurally makes the tension of the movie not only, okay, how do we get Gamera into position for this plan, which would have been most of the film, but also what is the actual plan?
Yeah.
And
it's an element of mystery that is really sweet.
Yeah, I think it just adds more to it. But yeah, turns out they built a ginormous rocket.
It had to be huge because Gamera is what, 200 feet tall, they say?
Yeah, I don't know the logistics of that.
It would
Apparently,
need so much rocket fuel.
it sounds like Japan already had it. There's
Yeah.
there's no booster rockets on this thing. It's one solid like piece. Don't want to get into the logistics, but they lure Gamera onto the island they're on. And essentially they built like a clamshell thing, so he stands in the center and it wraps him up in a capsule, and then they launch him into space. It's really dumb. It happens relatively fast. It's definitely not the coolest way. Well, it's definitely not the most interesting way I've seen to handle a kaiju. But because of how ludicrous it is just kind of cool.
I think the coolest part about it is there is sort of an escalation of ways to solve the problem throughout the film because
they start with nukes.
They start with nukes, and it fails immediately, which is hilarious. Because that's like, you know, everyone's always talks about the nuclear option. They used the worst option immediately, and it failed. Then they do the classic move of flipping on its back, and that fails too.
They use ice.
They try this movie is basically them constantly failing at killing Gamera or getting rid of him. So they just go to the most insane thing they can think of.
And I think it's interesting that the final solution is just, let's just send him somewhere else.
Yep.
Not our problem.
Yep.
Even though he can fly.
Yeah, he can fly. And he's probably fine up there,
Hopefully
actually.
not through space.
Hopefully not through space. Gamera's going to have a fucking long trek back from Mars, and he's pissed.
But I did think it was a fun way to end this movie.
No, it's fun. That's it. It's fun. It's not cool. Like, it's cool, but it's not a good way to end the movie.
They pulled a team rocket.
Yeah, they really did. Oh, God. That's hilarious.
The rocket, you see it, like, blink out, and then the end kanji pops up.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
The last thing I want to talk about, because I just thought about it, and it's something we haven't talked about, really, is, and I thought this was fairly interesting, but Gamera is sort of treated more like a monster or an animal than I thought it was going to be. Like, because I've never seen a Godzilla movie or any other kaiju movie, and I feel like in a lot of
kaiju
cases...
movies have you seen?
None.
Any?
None.
Not even the new ones?
No.
Did you see Zilla?
Uh-uh.
The one from the early 2000s?
Nope.
Late 90s?
Nope. I haven't seen... I've never... That's what I'm saying.
This was the first one?
This is the first one ever.
I'm sorry.
Well, it was great. I had a
I'm glad
blast.
you liked this one, but you should not have to be like, oh yeah, my first kaiju film was good.
That's awesome. No, I think this is the best place to start. Anyway, but he's treated more like an animal or a monster than I expected. I came in with a little bit of like, I guess, cultural osmosis knowledge of like, oh, they're like fairly smart kind of sometimes. Like they make interesting choices. But Gamera is treated like an animal. Like they use food to literally lure him everywhere. And it's really cool and interesting. And they do it in cool ways. Like at one point they need to get him from one island to another. So they just line oil barrels up across the ocean and blow them up and create a giant line of fire that he just eats as he goes. And that's really cool. Like it's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of more standard than you were thinking. I mean, kaijus are always just more often than not giant animals.
Yeah.
And their intelligence is really linked to what the story needs them to do.
Sure.
And so sometimes they feel more intelligent because they're fighting other kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, in more simplistic movies where they're just destroying stuff, yeah, they do tend to feel just like angry animals.
I just found that to be fairly interesting coming in.
Yeah, it is interesting to hear kind of where your thoughts are different than like what the movies actually are. Like what your expectations from cultural osmosis differ from what the films actually are.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting going further with this genre when we watch other films, like if it isn't what you expect.
Can I be honest? I'm so much more excited now.
I know you
I'm
are.
so much more excited to pick this category now.
Are you mad you waited so long?
Yeah. I opened this part of the episode with that, but yeah, I'm mad now because I'm really excited. I think we're gonna watch another one next week.
All right.
Oh, so cool, bro. So cool.
Do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so, bro.
All right. We'll go to recommendations if you want to start.
Sure. If you like turtles, he's a giant turtle. That's fucking sweet. I love it. It's so cool. If you like black and white movies, while this movie is not the greatest use of black and white in a film, it is in black and white, and that's kind of cool.
No, this is actually
A pretty bad use of black and white.
a really bad use of black and white.
Which sucks.
I actually think black and white films, when they're made well, look amazing
Oh, yeah, they do.
on modern stuff.
Like, when we did Haunted Houses, bro, all those films were in black and white. And they,
Yep.
Yeah, they were all in black and white. And they were all so good.
They all look really great because they get very, I'm going to use the word crisp, but the
Mhm.
definition feels really high because of the contrasting colors.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good example of how that can be really bad.
Yeah. If you like Japanese movies, this is a cool Japanese film. And I think the coolest part about it being a Japanese movie is that it was way more international than I thought it was going to be. And you get people that aren't Japanese speaking Japanese and doing stuff in Japan. Which is interesting and fun.
You can tell who doesn't know Japanese.
Because they have to ADR it.
Well,
It's pretty
they're
bad
either
sometimes.
ADRing it, and you can tell some of the characters, though, are doing stuff phonetically,
Yeah,
which is also funny.
it is funny. I mean, if you're a fan of kaiju movies, I really like this one. I think it's super duper fun. I had a really good time. I think that's it.
Okay. To be honest, not necessarily sure how much I would recommend this film, because as far as kaiju films go, especially from this era, there's definitely much better ones I think you should watch first. Godzilla is the obvious one.
Sure.
You know, if you're going to watch a Showa era kaiju film, go watch Godzilla. However, I think if you're interested in a giant turtle monster, that's fairly cool, especially if you want to see it shoot fire and fly around like a spinning top. But I do think the big recommendation here is if you're interested in the Gamera franchise. From what I've heard, a lot of people are like, go watch the Heisei stuff first.
Really?
Just because it's so much better. And if you want to appreciate it, might as well start with the stuff you like and then get to the
But I like
the
this.
trash. But I honestly don't think this first movie's that bad. And if you can get past the like technical problems,
That's what sucks, man.
I think there's a much better film underneath. And I will say, okay, yeah, maybe you can start with the Heisei stuff, but give this one a watch. I think this one's pretty decent. That being said, rate it.
Look, I really like this movie, but I'm aware of its multitude of problems.
Oh, so many issues.
So many problems. So I can't just like give it a 5, even though I would love to do that. But it doesn't deserve it. Like, actually, I think it might deserve it, but it's not going to get one.
It does not deserve it, but you liked it that much.
I did like it that much. I had a fucking blast with this movie, man. But because of the fact that, A, surface level characters, most of them aren't very, like, memorable or interesting or cool in any way. Lots of, like, unended plot stuff that just doesn't need to be put in the movie at all that you could have cut. A lot of the practical effects, while they are very cool and I appreciate them, they look cheap. And if you're not a fan of that, you won't like it. So that sucks. But cool monster. interesting way to deal with the monster. I like Toshio a lot. I like the whole, I'm a fan of this kind of movie, but I get why other people would have problems with it. And that's totally understandable. But I am going to give it like a 3.5.
Just for sheer appreciation.
I just like this movie that much.
That's fair. Okay, I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, Ben. That's
You
how
ready?
this works. Yeah.
You ready?
I'm going to punch you in your mouth.
Look, I think the product is a perfectly passable kaiju film. It is. And I think for Gamera itself and design and, the fact that it can fly, that gives it some points. But the fact that, the human sections suck.
It's bad.
And I personally found the only human character to be really annoying. Not to mention, some of this stuff looks pretty bad. Not just film stock, but some of the models look not great. I can't see myself giving it a 3.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it deserves at least a 3. That's just generally.
I think without a lot of the underlying problems that feel to be from mostly production issues, it probably could have gotten a 3, a 3.5. I don't think it's bad. I think it is a perfectly acceptable kaiju film. But really, it's just there's just so many issues.
Yeah.
And the biggest one is how the film looks. I didn't have too many issues knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
But it is a really big takeaway.
It is. It really sucks, man.
And I think for that, I have to take off a point. So I'm going to go with 2. It's one of those things where it's because, I think my enjoyment of it may have been a bit higher than that, but it's such a big takeaway.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a much bigger takeaway for other people who aren't here to just watch the film like we are.
Sure.
Not to mention, I enjoyed watching this film with Bob. I don't necessarily think I would have enjoyed this film watching it by myself.
That's fair.
And I do think that's also needs
I would
to
love
be
watching this
factored
film
in.
by myself.
I'm sure you would.
This movie's so fucking cool.
Any other case, I guess if you don't have anything else, we're going to go to outtakes.
Yeah. Well, see you guys after the outtakes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the outtake section for this episode of Beware the Board. I hope you're enjoying our review of Gamera the Giant Monster so far. I really love this movie. I think it's super duper fun. But without further ado, let's get into the outtakes. This first clip is my reaction to seeing Gamera for the very first time.
So you don't know what Gamera looks like at all, right?
No, I have no idea.
Well, here we go.
No fucking way. Is that a motherfucking turtle?
It's Dr. Pepper.
That's so fucking cool, Ben. Oh my god, I love turtles so much. This next clip is my reaction to seeing exactly what Gamera can do for the very first time. Look, whoa, fire-breathing turtle? Holy shit, that looks cool.
Now all he needs to do is be a ninja.
True.
A teenager.
True. We don't know how long Gamera's lifespan is. Gamera may be a teenager. This next clip is our reaction to Toshio's theory about where Gamera came from. That's the best option, isn't it? My pet turtle turned into Gamera.
Yeah.
It's all any kid could hope for. This next clip really emphasizes how much more I enjoyed this film than Ben did. Okay, no, that's actually sick as fuck. Do you see that shit? The fucking shit is bouncing off of his shell.
I see it.
It's so cool, Ben. How are you? I feel like you're not enjoying this nearly as much as I am.
I mean, I'm having fun.
This next clip is our reaction to Gamera doing probably the coolest thing I've ever seen a turtle do, ever. The ultimate defense against a turtle. Knocking it on its back.
Sunny side up.
They're gonna starve it out? They're just gonna fucking die over there?
Perfect solution.
It's not gonna work. This thing has motherfucking fire breath.
Perfect solution 40 minutes into this movie.
That's why I'm confused, man. An insane solution to an even crazier... Is it going into its shell? Whoa. No, that's sweet. That's so... Oh, man. This movie just keeps getting better.
Trust me, Bob. You're gonna like this.
Yo! No fucking way. Is this what the flying saucers were before?
Remember the flying
Fucking
saucers?
Gamera's flying by shooting fire out of its shell? No, Ben, okay. This is the greatest movie of all time. This is so fucking cool. I was wondering when that was going to come back around. Oh, man.
Gamera can fly, by the way.
Huh?
Gamera can fly, by the way.
Oh, it's so cool. Do we have to watch any other kaiju films? Can we just finish Gamera?
There's so many movies.
I don't care. This is awesome.
We can finish it eventually.
This next clip is Ben making a very good point during the movie. Oh, that's actually fucking sweet. Really bad for the environment, but really cool.
But you know what else is bad for the environment?
What?
Gamera killing off all the fish.
True. You're right, bro.
Like, who is this gonna fucking affect at this point?
This turtle's done enough.
All the fish are already dead. There's nothing left to die.
True. This next clip is our reaction to how they finally decide to deal with Gamera for good. No way that's how they deal with this big fucker.
Remember when I said to the moon?
They're launching the turtle that can fly into space? Holy shit. Why is he okay with this?
Well, they're not killing him.
I mean, they're not, but they essentially are. There's no way that motherfucking turtle can breathe in space.
He's immortal. He can breathe nothing.
Ain't no way, bro.
He literally survives on, like, fire and radiation.
Space is full of radiation. They put Gamera to Mars! We cannot think with Gamera on Earth, so it's dispatched to the parent Martian planes. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Do we have any announcements, Ben?
I mean, I think Bob's going to get mad if I don't say it.
You're right, I will.
But we have the Unholy Trinity coming out at some point, guys. I'm sorry. We lots going on in life. We still need to record 2 episodes for that.
I know.
Sometime before October, like 20th, we'll do some convention prep.
Mm-hmm.
We still got a couple months, though, so
It's only August.
it's whatever. I don't think we're going to be doing many films for that. Probably just a handful.
Yeah, I know Blair Witch is on the list for sure.
And I don't actually know if there's going to be anything else on the list.
Oh,
because
I mean, you'll look through the list and we'll figure it out.
I need to look through the actors and stuff. Outside of that, usual spiel. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're checking us out on a podcast-specific site, please give us a quick recommendation or rating. That really helps us out with getting traffic there. You could also recommend us to a friend. That's probably the best way to help us out, and we really appreciate it. It's cool if you like the podcast that much. Don't know why.
We're funny sometimes.
I guess. Otherwise, check us out on YouTube. While not the best for audio-only content, it does have a couple cool tools for you guys. There's a search button which says you search key terms in all our videos, so in case you're looking for something like a movie title, that's a very easy way to tell if we've covered a movie. But it also has, like, a bell button, which if you hit, notifies whenever we post something new. In case we do something out of order, like an extra episode, a holiday thing, something like that. But the big thing with YouTube, it really does help us out if you go over there and, like, subscribe, or like our videos, or watch them. That's really the only way we can interact with you guys through, like, judging engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Because the RSS feed stuff kind of sucks.
It's really janky and definitely inaccurate.
Same with the Spotify stuff as well, and
hard to access.
Apple Podcasts. It's hard to do, especially because you guys are all on assumedly different platforms. So we appreciate that. With that being said, though, the biggest thing about YouTube is it's one of the 2 major places to communicate with us at. You can do that in the comment section of a specific video if there's something you want to talk to us about in that episode. Or you can go over to Twitter, @BewareTheBoard, and go talk to Bob. Maybe tell him about your pet turtle.
Oh, yeah.
How it grew from a tiny turtle in a house into a giant monster.
I can't believe we didn't talk about that. That's so funny. That's such a good point in the film, too. I love that scene. Like Ben said, check us out on Twitter, @BewareTheBoard. It's where we post updates about the show, information about the show, Basically, if there's anything you want about the show, it goes on our Twitter. On Mondays, I post a spoiler post for that week's worth of episodes, which is a hidden movie cover you can reveal, so you can watch the film before we do. So when we release the episode, you don't get any spoilers, and we're being vague about stuff, you know what we're talking about. Then on Fridays, or whatever other day an episode goes live, I always post a link to the episode. So if you're missing an upload or want to know something went up, there's always a link on our Twitter. Last thing, we make short form content for the show. It's over on @BewareTheBoard on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. So if you like short form content and want to support the show, check us out there @BewareTheBoard on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. Ben, I think that's it, man.
Okay, we'll see you guys next week when Bob probably chooses another kaiju movie.
I'm not lying this time, actually. So yeah, see you guys next time.